Hi, and welcome to another episode of Kuntarkis. My name is Michael Yon, and this episode is on the Dorakinn Dragon Society from the planet Dorakinn. And yes, I mean dragons. They are the actual dragons that we know of. So, over to you, Kuntarkis.
Well, as I said, Michael, this podcast is all about a society called the Dorakinn Dragons, who exist on a planet called Dorakinn 1. The reason I stated Dorakinn 1 is they also exist on two other neighbouring planets, also called Dorakinn 2 and 3. So I believe you have some questions.
Yes, I do. So, how old are the Dorakinn dragons, meaning in their evolution?
The Dorakinns are about 8 to 9 million years old as an existing species. As I have stated on several occasions, the time factor is quite different from universe to universe, meaning everything throughout all universes vibrate at a different frequency.
That's a lot of years. My second question is, how far is their planet from Earth?
I must say this, it's a lot further than my home world, Nakaris, which is 417,000 light years from Earth. With Dorakinn, it's over 1900,000 light years from planet Earth. And with light travelling through space, it is known to be the fastest speed that any species can relate to, and that being just on 300,000 kilometres per second. So just imagine, if you travelled, say, 1 by light year at 300,000 kilometres per second, multiplied by how many seconds in a year, it means you have roughly travelled 9.50 trillion kilometres in that space of time. And how many seconds in one human year? About 31 million, if not a few more. So wow, that, Michael, is a lot of kilometres.
Yeah, gee. So the name of the Dorakinn's planet is Dorakinn, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. What's also interesting, they exist or live on 3 neighbouring planets, which I explained, which all come under one leadership. And their 3 planets are all called Dorakinn. So no one can get confused in which planet to land on. And again, they say Dorakinn 1, Dorakinn 2, Dorakinn 3. So they all live alongside each other in harmony.
Why do you call these aliens the Dorakinn Society?
Well, most of humanity would not be able to accept my answer to your question. Yet, beyond Earth's universe exist trillions of universes beaming with hundreds of thousands of different species of life forms. And I do mean different. So to answer your question, all I can say, the Dorakinns are actually living, breathing dragons. And the alien race called Nakarons guided their species over several hundred years in giving them the natural ability to transform from dragon to a humanoid form.
Wow. And are you saying they are living dragons? Can you explain that in more depth?
If we went back, say, in their evolution, let's say 8 million years, what we would have seen on their planet at that moment would have been a dragon creature who would have been quite a vicious predator, more than likely huge in size. So let's be honest, look at the dinosaur age on Earth. There were some vegetarians, meaning plant eaters, and there were flesh-eating carnivores, small ones and very massive ones, and they roamed the earth for millions of years. In saying that, why would there not be other planets within all universes that could or does contain similar life forms, all evolving to their own vibration, their own frequency?
You said just prior that these Dorakinn dragons can transform, or more to the point, shapeshift into a humanoid form. To what degree? And can you describe what they look like?
Yes, first let me say the alien race called the Nakarons came to their aid roughly 2 million years ago because there were wars amongst themselves and it was getting out of hand. Trying to deal with aggressive, massive dragons was a huge challenge for the Nakaron warriors, but the Nakarons were well known as the elite warriors of many civilizations, as they were known as never to give in. Over a long time, the dragons began to listen to the teachings of the Nakarons, yet there were those who tried to fight hard against the teachings. So one of the Nakaron leaders, called Kanag, asked not only for advice, but for help from a being called Yarkis Kardis, if he would be willing to communicate with them on their home world. but also to demonstrate the power of the mind to the Dorakinn dragons by transforming himself directly into a Dorakinn dragon, which he agreed, and he did so. But he also gave every Dorakinn dragon the power of speech in communicating in a universal language called Sanskrit. That in itself turned the tide of change. Even the ones who did not want to change gave into it. Their biggest hurdle was to transform their eating habits first, which took a very long time. That's when the real teaching began, through visualization, meditation techniques. The days, the months, the years passed, and one morning there was a huge gathering of dragons who were told by an Nakaron that there was to be an event that would transform every Dorakinn's thinking. As these massive dragons gathered around this large stone block, where a dragon leader would stand on to give his speech, they all noticed a dragon flying high above them. Then suddenly the dragon would fly in a circular motion, coming down, and without warning, transform from a dragon to a humanoid form. Landing on his feet on top of this huge rock, it was like everything stood still. Not a sound was heard as they all just stared at this humanoid figure, smiling at his comrades. Then he spoke, saying to all, "Listen to my words. You know who I am. I am Tang Yung, and my mission was to complete the training so I could show you all that what the Nakarons were saying is complete truth. I stand before you as your brother, and what I have achieved, so can all of you. I am still a Dorakinn dragon, but I am also a Dorakinn who has become transformed into a new evolution." So, Michael, let's get back to your question. What do the Dorakinn humanoids look like? What's really amazing, the average dragon has a wingspan of around 20 meters. Their actual wings look like large parachutes. They're roughly 15 meters long. There have been larger ones in the past, but most Dorakins in their humanoid form would stand about 186 centimeters to 194 centimeters. Their eyes are a little diamond-shaped and can be all black with cat's iris shape in the color of green or silver. Their body is well formed, quite muscular, yet not like a human bodybuilder. It forms naturally by the power of their imagination. That's how the Nakarons are in their own civilization. The mind is the power source of their evolution and has been for 27 million years. Their neck is a little longer than a human, as their chest is also a little smaller, and they all have a narrow waist. The interesting factor about the Dorakins, when existing in a humanoid appearance, their outer shell, which is skin, is striped. Some have these stripes over their entire body, yet it has been noted as evolution goes forward on many of them, the stripes are fading away completely. When it comes to their body appearance, the males do not have exposed genitals. They only come out when they need to go to a toilet or being intimate with a female humanoid. And that also goes with the female.
And wow.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, isn't it, when you think about it?
Yeah. Do they mostly stay as dragons now or in their humanoid form?
It's an interesting observation from what I can remember when I lived 2 existences as a Dorakinn dragon. What's even more interesting, realizing that I exist in this present moment in a human body and being able to communicate with my good friend Tang Yung, who is currently reincarnated on Dorakinn as mostly a humanoid. Now, back to your question. They would normally spend around 85% as humanoid and 15% as dragons.
Right, yeah, okay. That's these days. That's obviously changed more and more over
It has,
over time,
in their
yeah.
evolution, yes.
Yeah.
Eventually, Michael, I believe, from what Tang Yung was saying, he believes in the time to come, in their evolution, they will no longer possess the ability to transform back into a dragon. It's evolution. And if we study some of the species on Earth, There are so many that have lost their certain abilities like flying, being in the water, where they've all adapted to the land. And now the ones that used to fly don't have the wing size, so they end up staying on land. So it's no different to say a dragon on a planet that's 1900,000 light years from planet Earth. It's just evolution.
Yeah, wow. I find that just amazing that a full-sized dragon who has evolved with the help from an alien race called the Nakarons to consciously transform through shapeshifting from a huge dragon into a humanoid that's, say, 25% of the dragon's size. What happens to the rest of the dragon's energy?
Interesting question, Michael. Within the human world, everything is laid out as being third dimensional in vibration, which is much denser in matter physically. Humanity as a species has a set vibrating frequency. And yes, it all depends on humanity's consciousness. Let's just say for humans, as an example, 14,000 cycles per second. If we then look at a Dorakinn dragon in their present, say, moment of evolution, as an example only, they would be around 24,000 cycles per second, which means they have a higher level of consciousness. Then if we use the Nakarons as another example, they would vibrate in frequency around 42,000 cycles per second, which in truth is quite a leap in thought consciousness. And since the Nakarons are over 27 million years in their own evolution, we can see why some species throughout all universes are evolved far beyond others, just like multidimensional worlds, parallel worlds, when it comes to living energy. There is no size nor distance, as energy is everything, and everything is energy. What is even more amazing, living energy is infinite in all things. So if it needs to, it can shrink or expand at will. Just think of it as having no boundaries, no limitations.
Yeah, I get you. The Dorakinn's planet, what's their homeworld like? Is it similar to our world, Earth?
Well, originally their world was quite a barren planet. It had water, but only fresh water, no oceans. And it did have some types of forests, but were spread out in far distances. The animals, well, very different to Earth. First, you had the evolving dragons, who seemed to dominate basically the entire planet. And yes, they were at that time in evolution very big carnivores, and they fought amongst themselves for territory. Quite huge battles in the air as well as on land. They were very, very aggressive at that time. You could call them Neanderthals, as it was on Earth. And yes, there were the vegetarian animals who had a hell of a time keeping themselves alive. Over a long period of time, all the vegetarian animals became extinct, which forced the dragons to attack each other for food to survive. During all of this mayhem, an alien race called the Armagods came to their rescue by transporting several thousand vegetarian animals, some quite large in size. This offering pleased the dragons. Over a small period of time, the alien race called the Armagods taught them how to form a line of communication with them, so the Armagods could explain why they brought the animals to them, and also explain they needed their support and help. The dragons listened to their proposal, and eventually there was an agreement which pleased both sides. Not to get caught up in this very lengthy story, the alien race called the Armagods made an agreement here on planet Earth with a ruthless king called Nastaya. This may be a hard one for humanity to accept because it was several million years before Neanderthals came into existence here on this Earth. But this king, Nastaya, was very ruthless and greedy. He wanted to rule all lands. Now the alien race called the Armagods, all they wanted was the precious minerals in the earth. They didn't want any battles. So they struck a deal with the king, Nastaya. He would get massive fire-breathing dragons, as many as he needed to fight his battles, and the Armagods would be left in peace to rape the earth of its minerals. To bring this one to an end, All was working for the Armagods until King Nastea won all the battles and owned all the lands. He turned on the dragons by making a law that all dragons must be destroyed, and they were, except for one called Tang Yung, who was a much larger dragon than the rest, but also quite intelligent. Dragon Tang Yung fled from his assassins high up into the mountains, which is now called the Himalayas. He found a deep cave, then created an avalanche, and then melted the rock that would be his tomb. His remains are still there to this very moment in human time. If they were ever discovered, it could change human history forever. But let's speed up time, and this is just amazing. Tang Yung, who is like a brother to me, my God, I had 2 incarnations as a dragon on Dorakinn. There were some hell-raising experiences we both had. Now he is existing right in this moment on his planet Dorakinn. Yes, isn't reincarnation just amazing? Especially if one develops their self-awareness of past lives' existences. It really helps in such a big way when it comes to completing one's own personal karma, be it negative or positive.
Wow. I can't help but have to ask. I had no idea that there were any kind of... I mean, was this king like human, just like a normal human?
Yes, totally human. And they were a sort of a barbaric race, a little bit more like Genghis Khan in his time. But this is going back several million years. I mean, human history goes back a long way. But we have no record of it because we can't. We can only find evidence of, say, scrolls or, something that tells what the past was like. But it doesn't mean we have to believe what's written on paper, whether it's hieroglyphics or in, say, writing form. Because you know what a writer's like. Sometimes they can overuse their imagination. And the only way to get complete truth is to teach people how to go back in time. Because we have lived so many incarnations, all those incarnations on us, our experiences, are within our cellular structure. And they always will be. Right up until the time our soul decides to no longer have physical existences. So we can learn how to go back and see the reality of what was. And if you remember how I explained to you about the new book I'm doing about the Dream Assassin Volume 2, even in Volume 1, how he learns to go into the void. That's mystical man going into the void, and he can literally watch all the different experiences, the actions, every moment of thought is within that void of every single human life that has ever existed. And if you know how, you can take out those fragments and put them together and create the past. That's another way of doing it. And that is the only way to gain actual truth. Now, I'm very fortunate, and I don't talk about a lot, but I've learned how to go back. I've even learned how to go to parallel worlds, and most of mine is all self-taught that is already lodged in my cellular structure. So I've got a helping hand at the same time.
Wow, that's fascinating. I wonder maybe if we were to do another episode on that, the history of people even before a million years ago. I didn't know. That's crazy. That'd be really interesting.
It would be actually very much.
So my next question is about, if you were saying that the Dorakinn planet was mostly barren with just some fresh water and some forests back then, what is it like now?
Well, that's another big story, and I do mean big. I'll give you a small overview of what has taken place on Dorakinn, especially after several million years in their own evolution. The Nakarons taught, helped, and guided the Dorakinn dragons to gain the ability to transform, shapeshift into a humanoid form. a decision from the Charon High Council was made to give them all the assistance that they would need, no matter how long it would take, and that they did. They even involved a race of beings being called the Ilias from their planet Taurus, who were well known throughout many universes as the architectural builders. They were the ones who built the pyramids on Earth approximately 20,640 years ago in Earth time. What they did was simply amazing. They designed massive dome buildings that would cater for the dragons as well as being humanoid. Not just one level, up to 50 stories high. The construction was made out of solid rock. The Ilias used the same technique as they did on Earth in building the pyramids that still stand today and do hold many hidden secrets that one day will be revealed to all of humanity. The Ilias had technology that could melt the hardest rocks, boulders, within moments and reform it into any desired shape. It took the Ilias around 93 human years to complete all the buildings over the planet Dorakinn. While that was going on, the Nicarons were transporting several rainforests from their own world as well as many others, which over time transformed Dorakinn into a lush, fully self-contained planet as it is in this present moment. And that's including Dorakinn 2 and 3.
Wow, I must admit I would love to see those planets. So what type of food do they consume?
They have a similar diet to the Nicarons. Naturally, it's all vegetarian, but interestingly, all the vegetation that grows on Dorakinn grows about twice the size. It must be within the composition of the type of minerals in their planet. So they eat fruits, they eat vegetables, they eat what we would call nuts. And the protein, as I said to you, there's a purple, a purple vegetable that if you open it up, it can taste like a fruit, but the protein contents is so high, it actually develops the muscular structure in a body, no matter what it is, whether it's, like a Nicaron, a Dorakinn, or even a human. In fact, I think if humans ate that flesh over a long period of time, they would grow much taller in size.
Wow. Yeah, wow. So being in their natural form as a dragon, what do they eat?
The Dorakinn dragon has a large consumption of vegetation, and they are non-aggressive like they were. They live longer and are much more active, stronger, and learn so much faster. Let me just say this. From what I've discovered, the Dorakinn society as a species has evolved so much faster than they would have ever evolved if they were left in their own demise. It probably would have taken them, I don't know, maybe 16, maybe 20 million years to get to the stage they are now, maybe longer. But what the Nicarons saw in the Dorakinns was the possibility of creating a society that would benefit not just themselves, not just the Nicarons, but many civilizations throughout many universes. And that's one of the big reasons why they did what they did.
I see, and also like a lot of evolved civilizations are very humanoid, aren't they?
They are, yes.
Seems to be the way to go.
They are. Yes, we're so attractive, you know.
How do the Dorakinn females have their babies, as either a dragon or as a humanoid?
Interestingly, some Dorakinn dragons still prefer to have their babies in dragon form, and normally there can be 1 or 2 baby dragons born as a flesh body, not in egg form. But the tide is changing quite rapidly by having their babies born only in humanoid form, and only one humanoid baby in any given pregnancy. I think the reason, Michael, it's going that way is if they continue to have, say, a dragon baby, then they have to then try and help that baby transform as it gets older. So what they're trying to do is speed up their own evolution by staying in humanoid form to have their babies, and that way the babies are born not as dragons, they're born as humanoid. That's a very interesting factor, actually.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah.
How is their world run, like trade, money, etc.?
Well, first of all, there is no monetary system like on Earth. They have adopted the Nakaran principles of life and are very happy with their way of life. They do trade with other alien beings when it comes to minerals, as their planet Dorakinn 1, 2, and 3 is quite abundant when it comes to valuable minerals. So they have a system now set up that several alien races have set their machinery up so it will help the Dorakins mining all their minerals. So they do that with trade. That's their main thing, is trading minerals.
What do they trade for?
What do they trade for?
Yeah.
Anything. Anything that, like clothing, materials, different types of foods like the flowers, whatever they want to do. It doesn't matter. Jewelry, because they're very much into, not so much into the jewelry side of it, but it helps because there's no monetary system. They give minerals. The other world gives off other trades, whatever it may be. And yes, it is clothing. And what's really interesting is there's an alien race that actually has come to live on their planet. I don't know how long it's going to be, but for a period of time. And they are experts when it comes to designing and fitting and making different types of clothes.
Oh, wow.
And they've been making the clothes for all the Dorakinn humanoids, as well as babies and all that type of stuff. So if we look at the value of the trade, the aliens who get the minerals are doing a killing. But the Dorakins don't see things that way, like the Nakarons don't, like the Ilias don't. They believe they're getting what they need, and that's what's important. And they're very happy.
Ah, that's awesome. Do they play any types of sport?
Absolutely, Michael. Both as a dragon and as a humanoid. As a dragon, they have races against each other. Some races are short, some much longer. And some, they have the best flyers that fly the full circle of their home world, which is done over many days. And naturally, with lots of celebrations. They have training camps over most of their planet. And the young and the old humanoids gather for, say, 2-week period and challenge themselves mainly to better their own skills for whatever reason. They also have racer hummers, which is naturally, how would you say, like a gift from the Nakarons, because the Nakarons, they actually invented the hummers. And what they do is they use them for racing, or they've been set up that way, which only takes one humanoid. And naturally, it has become a very regular event with the Dorakins. And as I have already stated, they exist on 3 planets, Dorakinn 1, Dorakinn 2, and Dorakinn 3. And the sports and the activities are all designed for conscious growth, self-awareness, and naturally for fun. So they're evolving, Michael, in very similar ways to the Nakarons, how would you say, to the principles of life. And it's all about living for who you are, but willing to help and not expect things back. But they have quite a large variety of different sport activities. I think I explained to you one time, as dragons, they actually have one where it's like a batting type game. And they have this type ball and they fly and they've got to scoop down and pick up the ball and they throw it to another one and then another one throws it to them until they get a goal. And what it is, it's only one goal, but the goal is in the center of the field. And whoever gets it in first, naturally there's someone that looks up and say, yes, it's those Dorakinn dragons or it's those Dorakinn dragons. It might be the color red, it might be the color green. So they have a lot of varieties of different sports. What they don't have is some of the low-life, perverted things that we as the human species have here on this earth. that actually stops us, halts us, prevents us, retards us from growing in self-awareness and conscious growth. And we're so caught up in those forms of beliefs that we don't have, say, the time or even the thought to want to change. And that's what's really sad. That's a very hard lesson for us as humans to learn.
I meant to ask, what is their lifespan?
Lifespan? Well, that's a really strange one because I actually found out, I thought I was right the first time, but I found out, no, I was wrong. They can live anything, well, I believe, this is not true fact, but I believe this to be fairly close. Anything between 800 to about 1200 years of human time as a dragon. As a humanoid, they live to about the same as an Acharon. Anything between 400 and 600 years. And that's being generous when I say 600 years. And when you're about 350, it's like you're only, say, 30 here on Earth.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, you're much fitter, I can tell you that now, much more springy.
Yeah.
Even at, say, 400, you can still jump a high fence.
Wow.
So it's just different diets, different levels of understanding, different thinking. It's a different way of being brought up. Here on Earth, we're brought up in most situations in a negative way through conditioning from our own parents' genetics, and we don't even realize it. And then we end up living a life of someone else. And that's not good. That's not easy. So we don't get the opportunity to step beyond what we are. Where they live, Michael, they grow up with positive genetics. It's just the way their societies are. Yeah, and I'm amazed really how well the Dorakins have taken on over several million years. How brilliant they are in their society. They're so elegant, if that's the right word, in a way, to what they were.
And it was 2 million years ago that the Nikarons first came in and helped.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So even though that's a very long time, they must still be grateful to them for the
absolutely.
change.
But you know what's really interesting, Michael? It's like any species. You know, you can get, say, 2 human children, and you can put them in front of you they're from 2 different families, and one will be like an achiever and really want to learn and put the energy and time into wanting to learn, even the basic reading skills or whatever, where the other one, all they want to do is play and they don't care about reading. And they grow up and they're not as good as the other person when it comes to certain ways. So it's a hard thing to justify which is better and which is not. It's just evolution of a species.
And you said you experienced 2 lives on Dorakinn as a dragon, and I just wanted to ask, have any of your 2 brothers or sister lived as a dragon on Dorakinn also?
Well, not my brother Kanag nor Narkris, but my sister. That's another story. Yes, Kalusha has also lived 2 incarnations as a dragon at the same era as I lived on Dorakinn. She was some dragon, the fastest flying dragon of all. It was amazing, a Dorakinn dragon, wow. We even used our own names as dragons, and we even married in one of those lives and had a dragon baby. And who should it be? Tang Yung. We were his dragon parents. The interesting factor of all of life as a conscious being is being able to tune into one's past lives. For example, long ago, now this is only an example, but it's actual reality what happened. And I've got to say this, I'll say this now. I've never, for years, I mean, I'm talking years and years and years, I've never had tears come out of my eyes. But this really brought tears to my eyes, and my heart was very sad and very heavy. But long ago, when Kalusha was an Acharon, she was a scientist, as well as Narcris. They went on a very long journey into deep space. They were explorers in the field of microscopic organisms. They were the only two on board an Acheron Explorer spaceship. Yet, by rights, they should have survived the aggressive attack. Their force field should have saved them and given them the time to escape. What was discovered, their force field was not active. They both were just going to bed. Even though Kalusha made a dashing run to the control room, it was too late. The spaceship literally exploded outwardly and was totally vaporized into very small particles, as if it never existed. When I found out what happened, it broke my heart, as Kalusha and I were to marry on her return. She sent me a message not long before her demise, telling me I was going to be a dad. Yet justice was served. The ones responsible were brought to swift justice. That's the good thing about technology. The Nakarons had a system that goes back into the past and discovered the reality of what took place. Now, I just want to explain something very quickly also. As they were in their spaceship about going back to bed, right? They were brothers and sisters, by the way. Kalusha felt something was going to happen. She just had that sense. And when she got up, she looked out what they call, like I suppose, a porthole. It was a large porthole on the left side of their spaceship. Now, their spaceship wasn't huge, but you know the president's plane, the whatever that's called, the Air Force One.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty big plane, would you say?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, look at that plane 3 times and put it all together, and that would have made up, say, their spaceship, which was quite large. It was a science spaceship. Now, when she looked out, she didn't see anything. All she could see was like a black spot that was huge, that looked a little strange. And suddenly she saw a white beam of light that looked like it was coming out of that black space and headed directly towards their ship. She made an instant dash, but she couldn't get there. And when I say the reason she made that dash, on the control systems of an Acheron ship, they have 2 hands. They're large, so it doesn't matter who puts their hand on it. But if you put your hand on the left one or the right one, it automatically ignites the impenetrable force field within a micro of a second. But she never made it, and the ship was totally destroyed. It took several months of investigation by Kanag and myself to actually find out where they were. And we got to a destination and we picked up a trail of gases that represented Nakaron. So he did what they call a pass check. And what he saw and what I saw was horrifying. That they were attacked by a black ship, huge in size, that was very hard to identify in deep space. And it literally never contacted, it just blasted their ship and destroyed it for no reason. So we eventually found out over the next few months where their planet was situated. And we went there. And we went there with 3 other big warships because we knew what to expect. We communicated with whoever on the planet, some big emperor, leader, whatever you want to call him. And he basically told us to leave or they would shoot us out of the sky. Well, we weren't in the sky, we were actually in space. And we sat there. And eventually they started opening fire. And before long, all these ships appeared in space. Lots of them. All these black ships. They were everywhere. And they opened fire. Naturally, they couldn't harm an Acheron ship. So we sat there until eventually they stopped. And Kanag, he was the commander at that time, he said, "You have some murderers on board your main ship. we're asking for you to hand them over to us. And he explained what they did. They refused, and they opened fire again with different types of weapons. Then they stopped. What Kanag told me, he said, set it up and bring them on board now. So I did. I transported them in what is called synthetic bubble ships. It's like placing a bubble over something and then transporting it. So they had oxygen. And there was 3 of them. They were brought into our ship, and Kanag looked at them and he said, you are now on trial for the murder of 2 Nakarons. And they eventually vaporized them, but they left them in liquid form in these bubbles, and they sent the bubbles back. And then there was a message that came through by some really strange sounding alien. And it said, is the business now completed? And Kanag said, yes. But if you ever shoot another vehicle or anyone, we will be back and we will destroy your world as if it never existed. Because apparently we discovered that they also were, how would you say, like bandits. They literally hijacked ships. And no one could ever work out where they hijacked them and where the ships disappeared. And what they were doing, they were bringing the ships back with them, and they were stealing the technology and whatever else. And they were killing all the occupants. And I heard in the grapevine, and I normally wouldn't say this, but I heard that their planet was vaporized because they found out what they were doing. And ever since then, they've never had any problems. The universe has been very peaceful. Now, interesting thing, Michael, before I just say the last thing, I'm a great believer as an Akaron. So's my lovely wife, Kalusha. Narquis can't because he's too young to give an opinion, I suppose. We as Nakarons believe in justice, no matter what. We don't believe that justice should go through a court system, put somebody in prison for 1 year or 20 years, and then let them out. When a person murders vindictively or does crimes that are so horrendous, they must be eliminated off that planet, 100%. So it allows natural conscious growth in evolution of a species. Now, to some, that's going to sound harsh. But in truth, you have to step out of your ignorance to realize that no one has got a right to harm the innocent. And on planet Earth, it's been happening for 928,000 years with all the violent wars, the violent murders, the violent raping of women and children. And it's still going on today. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, before we bring this to a close about the Dorakins, I just wanted to ask, like, what about our human history? Like, we know what dragons look like. Some believe that they were here on Earth, maybe in the last, 5,000 years. Can you talk about that?
In the last 5,000 years, there haven't been any dragons in the last 5,000.
How far back does it go in like the last million years?
Well, I would have to, now that's where the issue is. See, I've gone back and I've discovered several million years prior to the Neanderthals, and dragons were brought to this planet by the Armagods because they wanted to mine the planet Earth, which they did. very well. Humanity goes back, I'm talking millions and millions of years in evolution. Now, that's not to say that the emperor, Nasitea, wasn't an actual human. He could have been part alien, like that entire entire population. I would have to go back and really look at the history of where they came about or where they came from and why they were placed here in their own evolution. Because humanity has been going on for a very long time. The only thing that's really changed was when the Neanderthals were in their process of evolution, which was a long time, there was, prior that, a mass destruction on planet Earth. And I'm talking so many volcanoes erupting, so many earthquakes, so many tidal waves and tornadoes, and the reshaping of so many lands were incredible. And as far as we know, maybe humanity was nearly wiped out. Maybe they were. And then the alien race played with the chimps and the gorillas and the baboons and created the Asian race. Maybe when the Neanderthals came into existence from the apes and all that, maybe that's where the change in history occurred, when the 87,000 Acarons were placed here and the mixing of the DNA. So it could be a very complex past evolution, and that would have to be looked into much deeper than for me just to surmise what took place. I would prefer to investigate that if that was needed and then give what I've discovered. And then it's up to people whether they believe that to be true or not. But the interesting factor, in their inner essence, if they were in contact with that, they would know the truth because they would sense it and they would feel it.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, thank you, Kuntarkis, for sharing with us the Dorakins. Did I say that right? The Dorakins?
Yes. Dorakins, yes.
From Dorakaya, yeah.
Yep.
Dorakins.
You can say Dorakins, but some do say Dorakins. Yeah, they do. It's like Brisbane and Brisbane.
Yeah.
It depends. Like you get a say a what would you
Depends
say?
where
like
they're from.
Eastern
foreigner.
Culture. Yeah, a foreigner, and he might turn around and say, instead of saying Brisbane, he'll say Brisbane. Instead of saying Dorakinn, he'll say Dorakins or Dorakins. Something like that. But it's actually Dorakins. Yes, Darakins, or no S if it's singular.
Cool. Well, this concludes our talking about the subject, the Dorakins. I prefer to say the Dorakins, but I'm saying it by accident. Dorakins. Okay. We actually have a question that's come through from one of our listeners and a friend of mine, and it's a question about seeing or connecting with a past relative, a relative that a loved one that's passed. He's actually had some brief experience with connecting with them, and he asked me to ask you, how could he improve? How could he improve that? How could he?
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. With your friend, the first thing he needs to realize within himself is that we think at a certain level, and what we need to do is have a shift in consciousness. So we're raising our own level of thinking, our own level of consciousness. There's a veil between the third dimension and the fourth dimension. And that veil is like a vibration. And it's very hard for a third dimensional thinking person to go beyond that veil into the fourth, where they can actually communicate or see a spirit entity. Now, the way to actually do it, you can do it two ways, in fact, three ways. But one of them, which is very interesting, is to sit very comfortably and look into a mirror. And get him just to stare at that mirror, at himself. And he's got to do it in the silence where no one else can disturb him. He can have, doesn't matter what lights are on, fluorescent light, like a white light or a yellow light. A yellow light is better, I will say that. But what it will do by staring at himself, whether he's staring at his eyes, his forehead, or just around him, and what he'll notice each time he does that, he will start to see like a shift in the face. And it's like he's looking at someone else. It can be male or female, because sometimes the spirits are standing right in front of us, but we can't see them because we're third seeing beings. They have a tendency to be able to look through their vibration into ours. But we're finding it difficult to do that because we're not taught how to, or we're just not given that ability to think that is possible, or even if a spirit does exist. But if he stares at himself long enough, maybe say 5 minutes, without any form of wanting or condition, he'll start to see the face. It's like it's shape-shifting in a way. And he might suddenly see a male. And it might blow his mind, and he'll suddenly pull back and he'll lose it instantly because you close the veil. Go back and do it again. But without any thought thinking. Don't think about what you're expecting. Just do it. And what you'll find over a little bit of time, there'll be several wanting to communicate. And that could be his guides, his spirit guides, or a friend or a family member that has passed over that's wanting to communicate. The other way is for him to lay on a bed by himself in a dark room and put both his hands crossed over his chest like his heart. And just lay there. Make sure he's got a blanket up so it keeps him warm, so he doesn't get cold. Because if it gets cold, nothing will happen. He'll be distracted. And just think of the person, like looking at a photo if you can, of a relative, and then lay down, put your hands over your heart, take 1, 2, 3 nice deep breaths, hold for 4 seconds, and release it very slowly. And just try and see the face. If you do that over a period of time, you will find the face will appear. And it'll be like them looking through a window of time, or you're looking through a window of time. And eventually, when you become comfortable, ask them questions. Say, yes, it's me. Whoever the person is, their name, you say it's me. If it's Johnny, John, whatever, say that. I just want to talk to you. I want to communicate. I know you're in spirit form, and I know I'm in the physical form, but I really want to talk to you. And if you know their name, call them by their name. That's making an energy connection. And that's very important. They're the two best ways of doing it. Simple, yet very effective if you put the time and discipline into it. I did that for years, Michael, by the way, and it does work. So tell your friend that, or get him to try it, but don't get disheartened after 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 times. You got to keep doing it, and you got to make sure that your human brain is clear of negative thoughts.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Kuntarkis, for all that you shared.
You're very welcome.
And if you'd like to find out more about Kuntarkis, you can find his website, etcconsciousness.com, where there's a list of topics that he can talk about and reviews. And also the 3 books that he's published. Also, we have a Facebook page, which is Kuntarkis. So feel free to ask us questions there or send an email to kuntarkis@gmail.com if for any reason you'd like to contact us. For instance, asking a question like the one just asked. So that's it for now. Thanks so much for listening. My name is Michael Yon, and stay tuned for more.